Hello. Still September 2022. Still here on Mother Earth, watching those outer planets primarily as they appear to travel around us. Noticing that Mercury's retrograde now, starting to be felt, starting to be noticed. Patience more than usual required. Sense of humor more than usual required when Mercury's retrograde. But beyond that, looking at Pluto and Saturn and Neptune and Uranus and Jupiter, these outer planets, and how they travel around us and how they become close to each other and form angular relationships with each other that are specific to classical astrology. It is very, very interesting to observe and see the reflection in our lives. And this Pluto shift, huge. Huge. So slow though. Pluto being so slow, we hardly notice it most of the time. Or if it's manifesting in energy in our world collectively, it's not quite so overt as when it's changing signs. So it's been traveling through Capricorn, as I've talked about many, many times. Our systems, our structures, and it's still there. In fact, it's doing its worst now. It's at its strongest now, and will continue to be so until it finally gets out of the sign Capricorn, which isn't until 2024. So this continuous breakdown and death taking place in our systems and structures is only going to get more so and more rapid, the change. Health systems, educational systems, financial systems, food supply systems, all of the collective systems, these Capricorn things, Pluto, the planet of death, it's still breaking everything down. It hasn't really gotten fully in gear to its rebuilding phase at all yet. That won't be for a period of years. I've talked about this, I know, ad infinitum, but it's interesting nonetheless to take note. The latter portion of this Pluto traveling through Capricorn period, that again started in 2008 and will not be complete until 2024. As we come into the last part of it, the strongest part of it, when things are breaking down the most, Saturn joined it. January 2020, kicking in the pandemic, one of the worst parts of this. And it was very severe, and then of course Saturn entered Aquarius and carried on. Now Saturn's going to do something very similar, accompanying Neptune out of Pisces. Saturn often seems to join in with another outer planet as big shifts and changes are taking place. It's like the big neighbor is going to make a really big change and maybe move houses. So Saturn joins in and helps or adds to the misery. At any rate, Saturn often accompanies the other outer planets as big changes are in progress. So this is what's happening. Saturn was joining up with Pluto energy during the beginning of this crazy pandemic period. Saturn moving on into Aquarius. Now, Neptune's been in Pisces since 2011. It's still there. Now Pisces is suffering, and it is the health system and health issues specifically. It's the human immune system. It's illusion. It is what is real and what isn't real. It is imagination. It is illusion, and it is falseness. It is outright lying. It's deceit. It's also isolation, and it's the media, and it's liquids, water. So, Neptune things. A lot of suffering been going on. This is another Neptunian energy. with the planet that rules it back where it belongs, traveling along slowly since 2011, and will continue to be here traveling in Pisces until 2025-26. Now it's noticeable that Jupiter joined it in Pisces in 2020 and played around at the beginning of it, and then it very quickly traveled through Pisces, leaving it this year earlier. Now it's backing up into Pisces, so it's not finished yet, but its position and its presence in Pisces this last year and a half, and with Neptune there and continuing to be so until December of this winter, enlarged all of these Pisces issues that have been problematic in our lives for the last period of years here, the last few years especially. So Jupiter makes everything bigger. So we still have Neptune journeying through Pisces, stirring up the challenging, suffering energies, while this representation of the endings of our systems are kicking in and happening. Jupiter leaves Pisces at the end of this year, but Saturn joins it. Saturn moves into Pisces next year, 2023. And it'll literally be conjunct Neptune, as it was with Pluto when the pandemic started. Saturn will be conjunct Neptune 2023 as the last phase of this Neptunian energy is so predominant in our world, privately, individually, personally, and collectively. The media, the misuse of the media being accused of what they're doing and not doing, blaming the media for everything. I mean, the media has been just predominant and dominant in the collective focal point, really since Donald Trump came into the picture about 2015. And he is a man who knows how to play the media and continues to do so with remarkable skill. And others do, of course, as well. We see this happening in Russia to a very large degree. In a sense, there's an iron curtain down on Russia, like there once was many years ago, only this one has to do with the media, with information. So Saturn is going to accompany Neptune through its last stages of Pisces. And they both will enter Aries together, literally conjunct, hand in hand. As Pluto, of course, is fully into Aquarius by 2025. This is when these two outer planets join up to finally get out of Pisces. And this is when we're actually finally in those beginning stages of the world rebuilding itself. So we've got another year and a half to go, and the timing's going to get faster of watching things fall apart, and primarily watching those in power, or those attempting to become in power. Let's put it this way: the older, richer people in the world fighting over power instead of focusing energies collectively on what we should be focusing on at this point, which is a new approach, a new way of dealing with things so that the Mother Earth survives. Pisces is water. And as Saturn and Neptune conjunct travel through the latter portions of Neptune, which is again from 2023-24 through into 25, water is going to become a really big issue. Fighting over water, laws and regulations connected with water. All of these will be a big focal point in whoever is governing whatever countries. Again, the older, richer people tend to fight over power, and they use the media with tremendous skill. Doesn't matter, there's no difference. One is the same energy basically as another. The whole style of politics needs to change for this new beginning, this new era. Now, the powers that be aren't going to give up power easily. So right to the very last, right to the 2025, 26, 27 period, we're still going to see the old people in power trying to hang on to it, trying to grasp onto it, more and more money, more and more power, when what is really needed is new ideas, new younger leaders with a new way of leading that involves cooperation, not competition, and certainly not wars. The present style of politics has degenerated into this mudslinging, shit throwing at the other guy, the opposite, building up the energy of opposition, us against them, a war between this side and that side, two opposing factions. No, that's the approach that's being used on this planet for hundreds and thousands of years and doesn't accomplish anything. Wars never accomplish anything. Labeling the other side the enemies of the state or whatever, it has a very dark and negative outcome. And in the end, one has to judge people by the product, by you judge the tree by its fruit. And if a certain type of political system doesn't work, it just produces more and more war and more opposition. You would assume that through evolution it would go by the wayside, and we just may be at the point of transition where within the next 5 to 10 years we'll see new political parties and a new way of leading and a new way of working. Again, to make things work, these systems, these amazing systems that have been in place and been functional for so long, the government, the health systems, the educational systems, the legal systems, the rule of law, these things have been in place for such a long time. It's at a stage where they either need to be reestablished or altered or changed to suit the future with more protections or whatever required added. It's a very shifting time. And with all of the planets moving into Aries, finally getting out of this floating illusionary energy of deceit and suffering and isolation that's been experienced for the last 3 to 4 years, especially as Saturn and Neptune get into Aries. Aries is all about, again, new beginnings. And that's what's needed, new ideas. We don't need to keep repeating the patterns of the past. I'm going to briefly show you the USA's chart here to talk about specifically the energy of Saturn and Neptune moving into Aries together. Now, Saturn and Neptune conjunct shift into Aries in 25, but slowly they go in and out a bit, and it's fully 2026 when they're actually in Aries. Now, with the United States of America's chart, we see 2 degrees of Aries on the 4th house cusp. That's the doorway to the 4th house. The 4th house in anyone's chart, any country's chart, is the house that talks about the home, the land, the residence, the home base, the mother, or in a country's chart, the motherland, the mother country. So as Saturn and Neptune come together in this conjunction energy I was just telling you about, in the US of A's chart, it's going to move into the residence, move into the fourth house. Of course, Saturn will go through the fourth house in about 3 years. It'll be there that long. And Neptune will be there for many, many years. Many long years. The last time and only time in the USA's history that Neptune traveled through the fourth house was during their civil war. Are they setting themselves up for a world of hate against each other within their own country, leading to a position where this is going to happen again and within the next 2-3 years? One would hope lessons some have been learned somewhat, and again these repeating patterns of behavior that humans get into, trying to control each other and maneuver around. Yeah, we need some new energy being infused into the poor dear planet if it's going to survive us humans. At any rate, what's notable, Neptune was in the fourth house during the Civil War, and here's the interesting part. Mars is in Gemini in the seventh house of the USA, but Venus and Jupiter and the Sun and Mercury, they are all those planets, they're all in Cancer. Aries squares Cancer. We're talking a 90 degree. We're talking a 90-degree angle between transiting Saturn, transiting Neptune, traveling through the fourth house for the United States of America in 2025, 26, 27, 28. How will they use that energy? The only time this happened in the past history was, of course, 170 years ago, and it showed up with the Civil War. But that is a few years off, and in the meantime we're dealing with this incredible worldwide total humanitarian shifting of energy, and that's why the pandemic really, I suppose, had to occur, so that everybody became involved in this last manifestation of energy of this Pluto shift. And again, it's not completely finished yet. It's barely completing. I sincerely hope new ideas, new plans, new ways of dealing with problems in government and organizing new systems for the world that are efficient and will last for decades and decades to come. Well, for the next 250-year cycle. That would be the best. Up to the individuals, up to each of us. I'm too old to be of much practical use. Think about it. Bye for now.